Welcome, everybody, to the Heart Coherence Collaborative. We are so excited to have Jeffrey Allen with us. Welcome.
Yeah,
Jeff. Thanks, Leah. So good to be here.
It's truly an honor to have you with us. And so our group, as you know, is about to go into the heart for 30 days, doing gratitude practices, appreciation practices, heart coherence for 30 days. We wanted to hear your input on why this is so important from an energetic perspective.
Oh, yeah, you bet. You bet. So getting into, well, it's important because really every problem and challenge that we're facing on the planet, whether it's, personal, not being able to connect with people that we love as well as we want, or maybe we're a little moodier than we'd like, or or the big things like wars and famine and need and unfulfilled needs people have. All of these are just the same problem. So all these have to do with, are we kind of stuck in our head and analyzing things and coming from that space of right and wrong and good and bad and judgments, or are we able to I'll say it the way my wife Isami says it. It's not really about moving into the heart, but it's just about remembering that that's who you truly are. Mm-hmm. And so when you remember who you truly are, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can connect with everybody. I feel good. I don't have this idea that I have to take from people to get what I want. Like all those concepts that are really outdated now, they don't even fit where the planet and where we are as a society now. All those kind of go away when you remember your true essence. And I think that's what the heart coherence is all about, is like finding your true essence, remembering it, and then just being, enjoying that space. Yeah.
Well said. Well, with that, let's take a moment to dive into the heart. So if it helps, you can put your hand on your heart, but focus your attention in the area of your heart and imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart, your chest area, breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. You can try a pace of 5 seconds on the in-breath, 5 seconds on the out-breath, in and out through the heart.
And continuing to breathe in and out of your heart, breathe in the feeling of ease. You might even imagine yourself in a really relaxing place that you love. Breathe in that feeling of relaxation and ease.
Now, as you continue to breathe in and out through your heart, I want you to think about a moment in your life that you're really grateful for. It could be any moment, big or small, past or present, but just be in that moment now. Really feel that gratitude as you breathe in and out through your heart.
And next, remember a time when you were young or any time that you felt a feeling of someone's unconditional love. Feel that, breathe it in. And if you can't easily remember a moment, just direct some love and compassion to yourself and breathe that in.
And lastly, as you continue to breathe in and out through your heart, just want you to feel the strength of your heart, the gift of your heart, and just give thanks for your heart, because as long as your heart beats, you have life. Just really feel that appreciation for your heart with each breath in and out.
Okay, whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes.
I'm going to make a little adjustment there. Okay. That was really beautiful. It's such a nice way to just tune in. And really, just like I mentioned, it's kind of just remembering. You said, Leah, remembering those times when, you're in unconditional love, remembering, gratitude, Kyle, and like, yeah, really powerful. Yeah, great practice.
I would love to start out and ask you. So before we started, it's funny because you have a technique where if you're going into a conversation, you get into a certain energy and imagine it going a certain way. And before we started, we really wanted you to do some kind of, like direct us in some kind of thing. So we actually imagined that. And then when we started, before, we went live, you actually said that you'd be happy to do that. So I was like, oh. And what I'd love to ask you is, sometimes I think about, in manifesting and wanting to create things, what's the balance between doing that and just being in the flow of life and accepting it as it is? Because obviously a lot of people have an issue with needing to be in control. Yes. So I'd love to hear you talk about the balance of those things.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. So right away, almost every question you ask me, I'm going to think about my wife, Hisami. So we've been married 13 years, maybe, just a little bit more. And actually coming up on 14 years. Wow. And she's the one that really helped me find that balance. So most of my work that people know me for is about energy work. So how to manifest things, how to work with the energy body, how to create the life of your dreams. And all those things are really wonderful. I recommend everybody, follow their dreams. Make sure that they're actually your dreams first. A little caveat there. Following other people's dreams isn't quite as satisfying as we hope it will be when we get there.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is great, but whose dream was this? Why did I want this in the first place? So it's really good to kind of settle into that space of what do you truly want first, before you go after it. And the interesting thing, the reason I mentioned Isami is that I was just talking about this with her recently, is that there's different ways to go about manifesting things. And when we're, her work, the spirit mind work talks about that we have two minds. We have this one mind that's analytical, that we call the material mind, that's kind of, what we're used to taking action with and planning and doing things. And the other mind is the spirit mind, which is the mind that's connected with your soul, which is more what, you're working with in the heart coherence work is, let's remember that part. And so that balance, I think, has to do with using these two together. So it's not like one or the other. It's not that, to really find my heart space and to tune in with my soul and my spirit, I have to turn off my analytical mind and not use it. Like that doesn't really work. Then we feel really good, but maybe we don't take much action, right? Or the other way, like I'm gonna go out there and do the 10-step plan and take care of things and manifest, regardless of whether it feels totally aligned with me. I'm gonna do the marketing things that the experts say I have to do, and that actually work. So we kind of, like, most people are kind of in this challenge of feeling like they have to compete with which one. But this is what I learned working with Hisami, or living with Hisami and working with her, is that we can take our analytical mind and actually bring it into that space of spirit mind, or into the, you could call it the heart space, if you will. And when we do that, when we bring that analytical part inside here, all of a sudden it feels safe. So our insecurities kind of calm down. The things that we're wanting to manifest because we're chasing something, like, I feel like I'm not good enough, or people won't like me, or my parents wanted this and I didn't quite get there, or whatever it is, all those kind of go away when you bring this analytical mind inside this space. And all of a sudden it's just, for me, it's just a sense of relief. It's like, wow, I can, the noise kind of quiets down, but I still have the ability to take action and to do things. And this is really important. It's you're I'm kind of reading your energy as you're talking too, so I'm kind of picking up some of your extra questions. But, just interrupt me at any time. and there's so what I see in the energy there's I when I teach energy work, sometimes I'll teach a technique where people tune in and look at time frame. So, when is this coming, or what's the good timing for this? But what I noticed over the years with myself and students too is that if you tune into something over and over, sometimes you'll get the same answer. Like, when is this dream going to come true? When am I going to manifest this beautiful, conference like you have with, all these people? And it feels like, oh, it's just 6 months away. Okay, good, I can do it. And then 6 months go by and you're like, okay, and you tune in again. When is this going to happen? It's only 6 months away. And you're like, okay, I thought it was already 6 months. And then a year later, it's still 6 months away. And then people want to know, is my intuition broken or what's going on here? And for me, it's actually really simple. If you think about, like, I live in Tokyo, and if I put into my GPS and I ask it, how far is it to Yokohama? It's going to say, oh, it's just 1 hour away. But if I sit here and don't take any action, and an hour later I check again, guess what? Yokohama's still an hour away. Right? Tomorrow it's still an hour away. Every day it's still an hour away. And the same thing with our dreams. They're always that same distance away if we don't actually take some action to go toward them. Right? So it's good to have that motivation to know, this is possible. If I really kind of quiet the noise, line up with my heart and my inspiration and take action, I can be there as soon as 6 months. It's only that far away. But I do still need to take action of some sort. Yeah.
Beautiful. One thing that I heard you say recently that I really loved, and I haven't heard anyone talk about, it's in regards to intuition. And dealing with the heart, we hear a lot of people talk about intuition. But what you said was really cool. It's like when you hear that, when you hear something that doesn't sound familiar or comfortable, that is your intuition. Is that correct what you said? Because when I heard you say that, I was like, wow, that's a unique way to be listening in. Whereas you said your mind is unfamiliar. And if it's unfamiliar, it's probably your intuition.
Yeah, that comment is really for people that are kind of like me, people that come from the analytical side originally. My background is engineering and science and mathematics. And so that part of my brain, that analytical part, is very strong. And so if, and many people are like this, our analytical mind is very strong. And so if you have that, then intuition sometimes gets confused with sort of best wishes or hopes, right? Like, I'm going to tune in and I'm going to hear exactly the answers that I wanted to hear, right? I'm going to hear, like, does that person like me? Yes, they're really into me. Is that job coming? Of course, so if you're just hearing all the answers that you want to hear, sometimes it's true, but sometimes it's just wishful thinking, right? And so that's a good way to start differentiating between what's my true intuition, what's really the potential that's out there, how do I listen to my true self versus listening to the things that I hope are true, or that I kind of need to be true for my ego to feel safe.
Yeah.
So yes, but that's where I came up with that one, is like, that's the best clue, is if you tune in and you hear something surprising, that means your mind is not in the way. If you tune in and you're like, I never would have thought of that, that's perfect. I'll give you an example. When I was living in Sedona, kind of after my my shift out of corporate America, I was living in Sedona and I was tuning in every morning and kind of getting really centered, and I would just ask questions. And I was asking about where is this leading? Where are you? I was, at the time, I was talking to my guides every day, my spirit guides, and they were really clear. And it was like, where is all this going? I just quit my engineering job. I moved to Sedona. I'm a full-time healer and intuitive reader. And like, is this like, am I nuts? Right? Did I just go off the road or did I get on the road? Right? Which, what happened here or both? Right? And they showed me this image of me on stage at a large event and in a stadium and like this huge stadium and speaking on the stage. And I was like, that's where this is going because I don't like speaking in front of even a small group. So like, that's what you want me to do? And they said, this is available. You can help on this level if you want to.
Hmm.
And so I was like, that's not what I expected to hear. And it's not what I wanted to hear. It's not even what I wanted to do. But I could tell that that's on my path. And okay, I'm afraid, but I'm going to say yes and just step into that and see what happens. And without any expectation of I need to make it happen, or even that I hope it happens. Just that, okay, I'm going to let go. I'm going to let my mind release, and I'm going to kind of let my spirit drive.
Thank you.
I would love to hear more. I know a lot of your story, but I don't know a lot about the beginning. So I would love to hear, did you always feel like you had these gifts? How did they get developed? And what was the pathway that leads you to be the engineer who then goes down this career path?
Sure. Yeah. I'll kind of give you the short story. My, when I was in college, I was getting a degree in mathematics, one in computer science, and I just started having experiences that I couldn't really fit into my belief system. And so I was having like some shared dream experiences. I was having things that I just didn't really think were possible or that I hadn't thought of ever. And so that was kind of the beginning where I noticed, and probably a lot of people listening are having experiences like this now, right? Where something happens and you're like, okay, that actually happened, but I don't know what to do with that. I don't know where to put that in my belief system. I don't know, like for example, if you meet somebody and you're like, oh wow, I just feel totally in love with this person. I don't know anything about them. They're not what I would think was my type, but for some reason I'm drawn to this person like I can't believe, right? So this happens to people, and a lot of times they don't know what to do with it. Right? You don't know how to put this kind of, if your beliefs don't include that, you might say, wait, I have this list of 12 things that my perfect mate has to do. And then I have a list of 100 things that they have to not do. Right. And I have to check these boxes first, right? Before I can decide. But already your heart knows, boom, this is the right person for you. So people don't really know what to do with this. So that's kind of how my journey started in college. Like that's what happened. And then I kind of led two lives, two kind of parallel paths at the same time. One was continuing with my work. I worked for the government and for big businesses and startups. And, I had a really nice software engineering career. And at the same time, I was pursuing, just like many of you, I was pursuing sort of this other side, like spirituality and love and trying to find out, what does it mean to be a human in a body, and like what's going on in the universe besides all this science, math, and logic. There's something that seems more powerful. And so I'd kind of walked both those roads. For me, it took me into different training programs. I went to actually found a psychic school and thought, that sounds weird. Let's try that out, So I went there. I went to energy healing school. I kind of was just a junkie. I went to everything I could. And that's what kind of led me into, I had 10 years of experience in that realm and training before I made the switch out of engineering. So it wasn't like I quit my job and then decided to start.
Mhm.
It's like I already had a side job of teaching intuition, and I was doing readings, and I've been doing that for a couple of years. But things that, where things really got interesting, and part of the story that you probably haven't heard is the more recent stuff, right? So I just mentioned the story about, when you meet somebody and you fall in love before you know them. That's what happened with my wife, Isami. I was traveling and teaching at the time, going to different places around the world, and I got invited into Japan. And when I was here, somebody just had a coincidence right before I left. I bumped into an old friend. He said, "Oh, you're going to Tokyo? Let me let me give you a card for one of my friends in Tokyo. I think you should meet. And so somehow I hung on to it amidst the hundreds of business cards I received while I was, here in Japan. And I called up. It was my wife's friend, and we were going to go to lunch. And she said, "Oh, I think I'll bring my friend Hisami too." And as soon as she said her name, I could see Hisami's energy. It was like boom, bright, beautiful, like something I'd never seen before. And I was like, "Yeah, bring her." Wow. And then I remember, and the moment that happened, that's really all I could think about was when I was going to meet this woman. And I'm outside the restaurant a couple days later. I haven't seen her. I haven't talked to her. I just had a friend of a friend mention her name, and I'm already like, I'm in, right? and I can hear my guides are talking about I can see the energy in the relationship and everything that's gonna, has the potential to happen. And part of me is thinking, simple stuff like, I hope she's cute. Like they're kind of the basics, right? Those are happening, but still I'm like 99% in. And then when I saw her, I understood why. I was just like, boom, everything was there. Now, of course, we had some unique challenges. Like she doesn't speak English, so she could just say, "Hi, I'm Isami," and then I could say "Konnichiwa." Jeffrey Allen does. That was all we had for communication on a word level. But I got to say, our first date, and ever since, not having words has some real advantages. If you want to be in the heart space with somebody and really connect, you don't need words for that. In fact, words usually get in the way. But I can say words are helpful too. I wouldn't necessarily recommend everybody follow my path, but if your path looks like that, it is possible. Yeah.
I want to go back to something you said. Basically, early on, you were having these experiences, and you said a lot of our listeners are probably out there having these experiences. What advice would you give to somebody who just maybe had an experience and they don't know what to do with it? Because that was me. I had an experience and I was all alone and I didn't know what to do. I thought I was losing my mind. So how did you kind of take it and harness it into not thinking you're crazy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really normal. That's a great question. So, for me, I guess like it was probably the scientific part of me that helped me there. So for me, I just thought, okay, there's two things that are at odds here. I have an experience, and then I have my beliefs. And before that moment, I just assumed my beliefs were true. And I think everybody does that. All of us have, this is the world that's true. Which seems a little odd because every time we learn, we change it, and now it's true again. But we don't realize that we kind of miss that nuance that it wasn't true 2 minutes ago because I learned and changed. But we sort of skip that. We're just like, now it's really true, right? And so, but failing to notice that, gets us a little stuck. But I remember thinking that, like, okay, I have an experience, and I have beliefs. They don't match, so one of them isn't true. One of them's insane, right? So which is it? I was like, was I just crazy and I didn't have that experience? No, I actually had that experience. Even though it seems like a crazy experience, I had it. That's real. That's data, right? From a scientific perspective, that's information and data. What I expected to happen, okay, where did that come from? And I started thinking, I'm like, maybe something my parents told me, or I learned it like at church or at school, or all these things were my beliefs. When I kind of tried to track them down, I really had no evidence for really almost any of it except for very basic physical things. But all the philosophical things, I was like, okay, I can't really trust this. This is just at best hearsay. So I took that route. I just sort of threw out my beliefs and said, let's go with experience. This experience happened. I don't understand it yet, but I want to. And so I'm going to open myself up to experiences that don't fit my beliefs. I'm going to step into those rather than run away from them. And that's when things just blew open, right? because all of a sudden I wasn't trying to stay stuck and validate, my little echo chamber. I was consciously seeking things that proved me wrong.
Well,
Not from an intellectual standpoint, just from an experiential standpoint, or even, you could say from a heart standpoint, right?
Mhm.
So these experiences that we don't understand aren't logical things. They're usually feelings, um, experiences of the heart, of the soul, intuition, things that we know or feel or know ahead of time that we don't think we should have. Uh, these are the things that we don't understand.
thank you.
I think everybody probably in our audience would love to be somebody who could work with energy or be a healer. Do you believe that you are special and unique, or do you really believe that everyone with the right training and practice could do what you do?
I guess kind of both. I think everybody has their own unique talents. Like everybody has the things that their soul came here to do. And it's different for everybody. And this is why it's kind of it's in some sense when we teach others to be like us, we might be doing a disservice, right? Because we always want to remind people first. Probably the thing that you admire about me is that I managed to be myself a little more than just be what I thought I should be. And so then you should do that too. You should become yourself. Don't try to be me or try to be somebody else you admire. Just try to find your own guidance and kind of, live your life, live your journey. And everybody has it. Everybody has some unique, amazing talents. I would also say that specifically to your question, in my experience, everybody can learn to tune in to their intuition. Everybody can learn to do healing work. Everybody's an intuitive, everybody's a medium, everybody's a healer. These are natural human abilities. They're not something that's outside. And much as I mentioned that, and my wife Hisami talks about remembering things rather than learning. This is the same thing. All of those are things that you just remember because they're part of who you are. You don't actually need a technique. You certainly don't need a certificate that says you took a class. You don't need you don't need credentials to become yourself. And yourself includes intuitive healing, channeling, all these wonderful things.
Hmm. I would love to hear you talk just a little bit more about your actual relationship with energy. I've been like watching and observing some energy healers lately, and I see you with your hands, and I'm just curious, like what's actually happening? Are you moving energy? How are you visualizing energy?
Yeah, there's kind of I can tell you my experience, and then I'll share a little bit of what I've learned with Hisami because they're quite different. So for me, energy work it's something that I feel. And so if you see me, I'll be doing this sometimes. Like if I tune into the audience now, I can kind of feel the energy, even though they're in a different time frame, in a different place and everything. That doesn't matter when you work with energy. And so for me, it's just a sense of flow. I can feel the flow and it's like a wind current or a water current, and then I can move with it. So I can help kind of enhance that flow, or I can help sort of like calm it down or clear things. And all of that is happening without the analytical mind. So I spent more than 10 years doing hands-on healing sessions. And so in that time, what I learned was that my job was to just show up, to set the space, and then to kind of get out of the way and to let healing flow through me. So I was just a bodies are really powerful. You need a body to interact with things on this plane. So somebody with a body being there, being that kind of gives, that's sort of the ticket in the door, right? So somebody with a body is there. So now a lot can happen. But that person doesn't need to do anything or impart their own information or knowledge. They can just be a conduit, for healing to happen. So that's kind of my experience. Although one thing that I'd add is that I talk a lot about seeing energy, or I see this, um, or I hear this when I talk to my guides, but please don't take that literally. So if you're trying to tune in to your own intuition, uh, you don't have to see something as if you're looking at an object or hear something like a voice. Everybody has their own way of receiving information. And what I learned living with Isami is that that's just sort of it's kind of where it's getting mapped in my brain. It's kind of like my interpretation that I can understand about energy. Like if I look at your aura and say, "Oh, I'm seeing a little bit of," I'm looking at you right now, Kyle.
Oh,
Like I'm
What do we
seeing a
got?
little bit of, yeah. There's a little bit of kind of red around here and kind of down the sides, and then there's this really beautiful blue, kind of ocean blue light in the middle, and yeah, and right now it's like really opening and opening, and you're doing a lot to balance I'd say kind of the head and the heart is the most common way to say it, or I would say the material mind or analyzer and the spirit mind. You know, I can see that you're in that flow, trying to find that balance day to day, and enjoying it. You know, a little bit of judgment sometimes on yourself, but I'd say more joy than judgment. And so that means you're tipping the scales in that direction. You know, so when I look at the energy like that, I'm describing where it is and what it looks like and the colors and the motion and even what's happening behind it, right? But obviously, I'm not seeing light around you. I'm not, this is sort of my spirit mind is understanding everything, and then it's being mapped in my brain to material world things that I can talk about, that you can relate to and that you can connect with and that will be meaningful to you. If we're just doing it all in energy, it'd look more like this.
Thank you.
Right? So like that's great. That's great, but it's not as entertaining. It's not as like we want both minds engaged, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I mentioned my wife Isami. So she's completely the opposite. So instead of being sort of analytical person that opened up to energy work and intuition and so on and kind of like learned, she was just everything was always on. So she never felt separate from source. She always, even when she was a little girl, 3 or 4 years old, she just knew everything. And then she'd ask people like, um, why are you saying that you like that person? Because you actually really hate that person. Right? She might say this to a group of adults as they're talking, and they're like, what? What? You're like 3 or 4. Like, why are you telling me that? And shut up. Anyway, I was hiding that even from myself. And so she didn't really have any kind of filter. She was just always in that space of all knowingness. And so it's been really fun for the two of us, for me to see that perspective. Oh, you don't need any of the mental part. It's not required to have that. You can just be in the space of all knowingness, and that's fine too. And the reason I mention it is that when I was tuning in before talking to you two, I was looking at the audience and I could see one, there's just this really, really kind, gentle audience. It's like all of you are really wanting to do something beautiful for yourself, for the world, for others. And that's fantastic. And I also saw that, and I see now that that's not easy. That intention is the easy part. But daily life, sometimes you get bothered at, something bothers you, or you get angry at somebody, even somebody you love, or you get angry at yourself or judgmental. Like these things happen. And so there's, I see that struggle between how do I have both of those? Basically, I think the question is, how do I love myself unconditionally? Like you mentioned, Leah, how do I love myself unconditionally even though I'm not perfect all the time, even though I do things that I regret, or do things that later I can think of a better way, which is actually kind of cool. That means I've learned, but we don't think about it that way. We think we made a mistake, but it's like, no, I learned. Next time it'll be different. So, that's what I see in the audience is how do we live our daily lives and live up to like this goal of being, doing something beautiful for ourselves and for others and for the world. And these don't have to be at odds, even though they seem like they are. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, we obviously love coherence practices, but it is really difficult for people. I think we spend a lot of time in our minds, and unfortunately, what's in your mind is going to be a lot of your programming from childhood, a bunch of things that you might default to that don't match your intention. So, do you have some
Yeah.
practical tools or ways people can be more in their spirit and actually be able to match up with their intention?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So, maybe we can do you want to do just a little exercise? Yeah. That'll probably be easier than talking about it, right? It's always better to do it. Okay. So our intention here is going to be just what you said, to kind of uh, get out of that sort of external focus or analyzer and come into that more peaceful space in the center. Okay. All right. So if you like, you can close your eyes or you can leave them open. Either way is equally powerful. And what I want you to do right now, everybody, is just notice your body, because being aligned with your spirit, being in the heart space, is about being in your body. It's not about escaping your body, is your first clue there. So if you notice yourself floating away, just ground into something in your body. So feel yourself in your chair, feel your feet on the floor. You can rub your fingers together or touch your arm. Just notice that you're in your body. This is where all the magic happens. You don't have to leave. Okay. And in this space, inside your body, just notice your breaths. And just in a very relaxed way, let your mind count your breaths. So we're going to give your mind something to do, because that's how you quiet it down. You actually give it a little job. And as you're counting, just notice all your attention coming back in to this moment, into your body, into your breath. And you're starting to tap into that space that we call spirit mind. Now, if your analyzer, if your mind is thinking about other things, just be amused. Don't be frustrated. Don't be judgmental. Just be amused. And a little technique I can share for my wife is that when your mind is thinking, your tongue will make a slight vibration because you're thinking in words. And so if you put your attention right on the center of your tongue, again, just noticing you're still breathing, you can be counting your breaths if that's comfortable, and put your awareness right in the center of your tongue. And notice what happens. Very good. And just be in this space for a moment. Notice how full it is inside you. The entire universe is within you. You don't need to look outside. And just remember, all your answers are within. You can trust yourself. You can love yourself. You can be the authentic you. Very good. And when you're ready, just gently open your eyes. Stay in that same space. Yeah, very good. Yeah, really simple, really easy. Nice.
Thank you for that. I can already tell that you're somebody that we could probably spend like 12 hours straight asking questions to. No. Yeah, and it's also just really cool that like through these challenges that we're putting together, it like becomes our healing, you know? So thank you for providing that, because that just was perfect.
Yes, it really was. So we hope that you would come back with us again, because there is there's 5 million questions, right?
Well, I want to ask one really important question.
Oh, okay,
because,
one more.
Yeah, Jeff has a great course with his wife that love to hear about. It's fascinating that you two have come together and have this spirit mind course. So if you'd share with us.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, you bet. So the spirit mind training is so interesting to me, because before I already had this very detailed model of how the world works. I had a lot of experience doing energy work and teaching energy work and practicing, and then when I met Hisami and I moved to Tokyo, I was still teaching classes here, and she would come to my classes and she would say things like, "Oh, that part isn't really doing anything, right?" I was like, "What?" Or she'd say, I was teaching, people here really wanted to learn how to channel. I used to teach channeling classes. I don't actually teach that anymore because I think after all those years of learning to channel and teaching it, the final answer was just be yourself. Right? So channel yourself. So I was like, okay, that was a long journey to get back to, a lot of learning how to do something to learn not to do it. And so I'm in the channeling class and I'm teaching people and they're practicing, and it's at the beginning, it's, a lot of wishful thinking and a little bit of reality. And then over time, that sort of switches towards a lot of reality and the wishful thinking goes away. But you have to, I don't know any way to get through that other than to go through it. So I would validate my students where they are and kind of keep them going on the journey. And that's the case where my wife Hisami said, "Oh, they're not really channeling anything, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, just don't tell them yet. They'll get there. Give them a little time." And so it became clear really early on that as much as I can see and tune into, she can see all of that and even more. And so I started asking her, where did you train or did you learn? She's like, "Oh, I didn't train anywhere. I don't do any kind of meditation. I've never taken a spiritual class." I'm like, okay. So, okay, great. Okay, got it. and so he said, okay, how do we start taking the stuff that she's been sharing in Japan? Can we put it together into a program that people can take? How do we take this sort of wordless all-knowingness and help people shift into that space themselves? And so I got an interpreter and I showed up to one of her classes and was completely blown away. Like, wow, this is, in some sense, the simplest teaching ever, which makes it the hardest thing to do. It's like we want to have a bunch of steps, but it's really not required. And so this course, Awakening Your Spirit Mind, is kind of about stripping away all that needless stuff and really boiling spirituality down to its true essence. So, which is just about remembering who you truly are, learning to be in that space, and then learning to bring the rest of you, what your analyzer, and bring it into that space as well. So it's about taking these two minds, these two parts of self, and then integrating them, rather than figuring out, like I said, which one to use, which one's better or worse, or and so on. Like saying, how do I have them both together? And the experience for me of going through this is that life for me got much simpler. So even though I knew lots of techniques for manifesting things and creating things, I realized that 90% of that stuff that I'm doing can happen without me doing it. It's like one way she described it. She said, watching me manifest, I'm definitely manifesting really well, but I'm sort of going like this in a spiral.
Yes.
And she said, you can just go straight. Like if you're really tuning in and listening, there's a road that just goes straight to where you want to go and beyond. It's not even where I want to go. It's like a straight to where there's a road that's taking your spirit on a journey naturally. It's probably the wanting that's making me do this, right? I want to go over there. Oh, I realize that's not where I wanted. Okay, how about over here? Okay, how about over here? Right? Round and round. And although that journey is very fun, and we each kind of enjoy the dramas that we create in our journey, that's just kind of the fun part of life. There is a simpler way. So if you're starting to notice the bigger patterns, like I was, if you're watching this and you're starting to notice that I've been to a lot of workshops and I've got a lot of moments that are really exciting, and I think everything's going to change, and then I go home, and then a few months later I'm sort of back to the same spot, and then I go to a new workshop and I get excited, and everything feels like it's going to change, and then a little bit later, a few months later, kind of come back and I'm in the same spot. So if you've noticed that, or maybe your spot's moving, but you're noticing there's a lot of action or a lot of promise that's sort of enthusiasm that's not turning into sort of a permanent change, then you'll probably love this program, because this program, Awakening Your Spirit Mind, is about how do you make that shift? How do you make a shift off of this sort of spiral road that's moving in the general direction, but taking up a lot of time and energy, and that maybe you could just be hanging out with your loved ones or enjoying yourself. Maybe you could, I'm playing guitar now, which is really fun. I've got time to do things that are just about joy. It's not all about work or trying to accomplish or become somebody. Things kind of get really simple. So it's a little hard to put into words, but that's kind of, for me, that's been my experience with the Spirit Mind journey. And in the training, that's what I share. The teaching itself comes from my wife, but she doesn't speak English, like I mentioned. So it's all on we have these beautiful videos and some animations, and there's she's not like talking like this. And then me, my part is just sharing my journey. Here's what I thought I learned when I watched this video. And then here's what I actually learned, like a few weeks later or a few years later, or 5 years later. Here's what I realized, because there's just, when you tune into really deep spiritual truths, there's layers and layers of information, depending on how much you can let go of your beliefs. And so that's my journey. Is I'm sort of the navigator, helping people like me, analytical people, kind of like let that go and sort of get back into the space where you're just, life is flowing without quite so much effort.
Wow, thank you. And anyone interested, the links are in the below description. And I was gonna say no more questions, but I have one more. I just have to ask you. I want more. So one more last question is just, so as a part of this event, at the very end, at our Global Coherence Conference with the Institute of Heart Math, we have thousands of people that are going to come together at the same time, do coherence breathing. I was curious, what has your experience been with group energies? Does it amplify the actual energy?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the group energy, I'm just going to tune into your particular event. So yeah, what I see there is what's going to happen is the group energy is going to help people uh, get in sync with each other, right? And so, like I mentioned, everybody's kind of got their own core. Their spirit is moving in a particular direction, and they're all a little different. But in the big picture, we're all on the same journey. Right now, we're all evolving in the same way. We also talk about that in the spirit mind training. Here's the different stages you're evolving through. And so, what's going to help is when everybody comes together at the same time and is doing it, that part will line up. The larger journey that everybody's on, not all the little details that are different, but the larger journey that we're all on will sort of line up and resonate. And as that gets stronger, as that core gets stronger, all the little details about people are thinking about or working on, those kind of fade away because it's kind of like this music is playing really loud, really coherent, really strong, really beautiful. And so the other sort of daily life noise or personality things kind of take the back seat. And so in a sense, it's kind of a group event like this is another way of people remembering who they are. It's kind of like a shortcut. You can just all get in the energy, get on the energy bus or on the energy train, and like you're headed in the same direction. And it's really powerful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my question is, because I love love and romances, I just need to know, how long were you both only communicating the language of love, and have you learned Japanese? I need to know. It's been 14 years.
Okay, yeah. Boy, it's kind of embarrassing to admit, but no, I'm not fluent in Japanese, and Isami's not fluent in English.
Oh.
So what happened was we sort of met in the middle. So in daily life, we speak like Jinglish. It's like like Japanese. I do my best with Japanese, but I'm throwing in English words or grammar, and she does her best. And so somebody that doesn't speak both languages probably doesn't understand us at all. And it gets better over time. We're getting better and better. But I really thought, wow, I can knock out Japanese maybe in 1 year, certainly 2. I'll just be fluent, and that'll all go away. And here it is, 14 years later. It's like, oh, that wasn't true. That was wishful thinking. but reality is that when you have love, those things, even a big detail like having a common shared language, isn't the most important thing.
Mm.
When you have love, it's some of the things that really matter less than your love does, right? There's been times where I've wondered, oh, would my life be easier if my wife and I spoke the same language? Well, yes, but it wouldn't be easier if it was a different wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like my life is easy because I'm with Isami, right? So and it just, the circumstances are that we don't speak the same language. So, well, anyway, we both speak a little. I speak a little Japanese. She speaks a little English. And, but it's fascinating. It's a really fun journey for me because it's always a reminder that the words are not the important thing. The energy is the important thing. The love is the important thing. When I hear that, because our communication skills aren't great on that level, it's really easy to misunderstand, feel like, oh, is she dissing me in some way, or is she said something that seems kind of offensive, but usually that's a cultural language consideration. When things translate, the value is very different from Americans and Japanese. And so I always have to remember, oh, if I tune into her energy, where is she coming from? Oh, it's always love. She's always circulating love for herself, for me, for the world. She's always in that space of curiosity and joy and trying to help. So if she's telling me something, it's because she might I might be going like this, and she wants to do this and help me see, hey, you're going over there. You sure you want to go there? And it's like, what? I'm not listening. Why are you judging me? Why are you judging me? Then, oh, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, you're right. I don't want to go over there. Okay, back to here. Right. And so I'd recommend that for everybody is I have the advantage that I know our words aren't great, but all of you that are in relationships and you speak the same language, you're probably taking it for granted that what your partner is saying is what they meant, and that they knew what they meant, that they're saying what they meant, and that they articulated it well, and that you understood it. And probably none of those things are true. Probably they weren't quite sure how they felt, but they knew they needed to say something, so they said something, and it didn't come out quite as nice as they wanted. And then you heard it and you got triggered because your ex or your parents said that, or so it's like language is fraught with miscommunication. But it's okay. You can see through all that and just keep remembering, like, this person loves me. This person cares about me. Even when they're angry, they still love me. Just kind of part the the curtains and look at that, and then you'll start noticing, oh, I can respond from that too, even though my words aren't perfect and their words aren't perfect. And that's when to put it in your terms, that's when you're kind of speaking the language of the heart. Your hearts are connecting. The words are just the entertainment. It's not the important thing. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this incredible interview. This has been awesome.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone listening. We love you all.
Yeah. And in May, we'll have the details linked. We're going to be speaking the universal language of love when we do that meditation. So there's going to be thousands of people that join us. And we hope everybody can come with us and spread that love.
We hope you'll come back sometime because we have a whole list of extra questions. So
yeah, sounds great. I'd love to. Yeah, and thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you everybody for listening. And hope you got a little bit of inspiration on how to be more yourselves.
Bye, everybody.
Sending love to everybody.